Hi, I'm Daniel from qubit-lab.ch. This short deck is about upside readiness, how a bank prepares to capture quantum value without committing to production deployments. Quantum value has two prerequisites. First, hardware maturity, that is largely external and timeline uncertain. Second, organizational readiness, that is controllable. And that's the core point of this video. If you wait for obvious advantage, you typically start readiness too late. The only lever you control today is readiness. What do I mean by readiness? Readiness is capability, not deployment. It means a small cross-functional core team, credible use case selection with stop-go gates, benchmarking versus classical baselines with measurable criteria, and vendor assessment that prevents lock-in. Guardrails matter, no production commitment, time-boxed pilots, reusable assets, and no vendor lock-in. This creates controlled optionality. You can learn, build evidence, and be ready to respond quickly when value emerges. Here is the executive logic. You can wait for hardware progress, or you can start building readiness now. Waiting does not reduce the lead time of readiness. It simply compresses it into a panic later, usually under vendor pressure and with weak governance. Starting now preserves option value and prevents hype-driven pilots and lock-in. The objective is not to claim near-term quantum outperformance. The objective is to buy competence and speed of response so that when value emerges, you can act decisively. Quick reality check on timing. Readiness takes roughly 12 to 24 months, not because quantum is slow, but because banks need repeatable capability with measurable outputs. It's four things: people and skills, a baseline first evaluation method, vendor assessment with contract guardrails, and reusable assets so you don't restart from scratch every time. The plan is practical. In the first 3 months, you stand up the core team, shortlist 2 to 3 use cases, and define baselines and KPIs. By month 3 to 9, you have the benchmarking pipeline running, you can assess vendors, and you already make the first stop or hold decisions. Only if justified do you run 1 to 2 time-boxed pilots, and you build an asset library along the way. The point is, readiness produces concrete artifacts early and preserves the option to scale later. This is the playbook, 5 building blocks with measurable outputs. R0 is enablement. Identify the team and build literacy. R1 is triage. Pick credible use cases and define gates. R2 is benchmarking. Classical baselines and reproducible evaluation. R3 is vendor assessment. Evidence requirements and contract guardrails. R4 is controlled pilots. Time-boxed learning that ends with a scale hold stop decision. Same guardrails throughout. No production commitment. Time-boxed pilots. Reusable assets. No lock-in. This dashboard is the single source for exec steering outputs and KPIs by phase updated monthly. What I like about this structure is that it makes readiness measurable. In R0, you track staffing, training progress, and reusable assets created. In R1, you track how many use cases were screened, how many were stopped, and whether baselines exist. In R2, you track baseline comparisons, reproducibility pass rates, and evidence-based stop-hold proceed decisions. In R3, you track vendor pass-fail rates against evidence, and whether portability and exit clauses are in place. In R4, you track pilot outcomes and lock-in decisions, with a target of 0. This is how you keep readiness controlled, auditable, and non-hype. In practice, this dashboard is what prevents random pilots and turns readiness into a managed capability build. One more point that matters for execution. We need more than just a high-level approach. We need ready-to-use templates, questionnaires, scorecards, and dashboards. That is important because it reduces friction. It also standardizes evidence. Different teams and vendors are evaluated on the same baseline first discipline, and results are comparable across time. If you want, I can share a short starter pack that you can adapt to your internal controls and run immediately. To move from interest to action, you need 3 decisions. Decision 1. Approve the Readiness program R0 to R4 as a capability build with clear scope boundaries, no production deployment, and no lock-in commitments. Decision 2. Confirm ownership, typically CIO or CTO, with CISO and CRO as co-owners, and approve a monthly steering cadence with a quarterly exec checkpoint. Decision 3. Approve triage of 2 to 3 candidate use case areas, baseline first benchmarking, and enforceable vendor evidence and contract guardrails. Resourcing is modest at the start. 3 to 5 core quants or engineers, with part-time architecture, security, and procurement support scaling only if needed. The next step, start R0 and R1 immediately and return in 8 to 12 weeks with a use case shortlist, baseline plan, vendor assessment pack, and a stop hold proceed recommendation. If you want to turn this into an internal starter pack, I can help adapt the templates to your governance and controls and run the first triage and baseline setup with your team. And if you want more practical material, visit qubit-lab.ch. It covers quantum in finance from executive strategy to hands-on examples, explained for non-physicists.